teachers, we always have like a rich bank of activities that we always go and make use of. But sometimes it's time to redefine and to adapt new activities. Also, I want you to reflect on what are some of the challenges that you or your colleagues face when you are teaching grammar, and also what are some of the challenges that students face when they are learning grammar. I don't know if it's going to be possible for us to listen to some of you, so I will ask you to participate answering one of these questions, telling us your name, where you work, what levels you teach, and specifically what's your opinion about teaching grammar. Can somebody participate?
Hi.
Yes.
You listen to me?
Hi.
Oh, well, my name is Elizabeth Delgado. I'm Venezuelan, but I currently live in Ecuador.
Uh-huh.
I would like to ask to answer the first question because there you have many of them. So the rest of the team could participate.
Excellent.
How is grammar taught? How is grammar taught at your school program as a part of other courses? Well, first of all, I would like to say that I teach teenagers from 11 to 14 years old here in Ecuador, and I usually teach grammar using the grammar approach, drilling activities one over and over. That's what I do usually. I usually do with my students until I see they can they can use the structure in an appropriate way. That's what I usually do. After
Okay.
that, I accomplish my goal on them, I proceed to start using sentences in a free way. So the student can use the structure in a free way in different contexts, using, of course, the usually the books that I work with in the classroom. That's what I do.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. I would like to listen to another person answering the other questions that we have.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Okay. One at a
I'm
time, please.
Hello, my name is Lelia. I am from Peru. And here we teach grammar not in an explicit way. We work using situations, and students should learn the grammar by these situations, no? Guessing what is the structure. In that way, we use some examples. At the end of the session, we have a reflection part where we show some examples, and they have to deduce what structure did we use in the class.
Okay.
What activities that we use when teaching grammar, but maybe we use some videos or some examples, as I told you in the reflection part. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for your contribution. You mentioned indeed a very important concept that we're going to talk about in this session, which is situations. When we talk about communicative language teaching, of course, the word situations and functions are present here. Thank you very much. And one more question. I would like to ask somebody to participate answering these two questions that we have. We're going to focus on the challenges. What are some of the challenges that you find that you have encountered as a teacher, and what are some of the challenges that you have encountered in your students? If somebody would be so kind to contribute to answer these questions.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
it's me or
Yes, what's your
Elisa. Can
name?
you hear me?
Yes, we
Elisa.
can hear you.
Hi. I'm from Colima, and I teach English in a private school.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the school program is good, but one of the principal challenges that we have as a teacher is the time, because we only have 50 minutes for a day to teach. So sometimes we can have the time to explain and make an activity. We just focus on all the time the topics from the book. We only work with the book. I explain the topic, and then the students work with the book. So I thought one of the most important challenge that we have is the time.
Okay, yes, exactly. That's when it comes when we talk about teachers, we have very few time. But what would you say are like the most distinctive challenges that you have identified in your students
Uh,
when it
I
comes
think,
to teaching grammar, of course?
and they don't give the importance to the subject. I
Mm-hmm.
think they don't care about English, so they don't participate. They don't give the activities. They don't do anything because later I'm going to learn English later. Oh, I don't need English because I don't make trips and or something like that. I thought that is one of the problems that we
Okay.
have there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, definitely time for teachers and interest
Interest.
when it comes to students are some of the challenges that students face. So let's proceed. So once we have answered these questions, once we have set the ground for reflection on how grammar is taught in our classroom, in our school program, in our school. Let's proceed. We're going to have a very quick review of the grammar teaching methodologies throughout time. Of course, this comes from many years ago, since grammar translation, since the very first methods that were used to teach a foreign language. When we talk about the 1950s and 60s, always grammar was the foundation of language proficiency. Always grammar was the basis of language proficiency. They were very careful about grammar rules, about how sentences or utterances were constructed. That was the main focus for language proficiency. And then during that time, direct instruction was very distinctive. There was a lot of repetition, a lot of drills, and that was basically the only practice the students had to learn and to practice all the structures that they learned back then. That is in the 1950s and 60s when we talk about the grammar translation, when we talk about the direct method. As time passed during the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, grammar was very questioned, was starting to make specialists and teachers ask questions about if it was the correct way to teach grammar. So it's when we talk about that there's a focus on the skills needed to use grammar. Okay, so that's when the perspective started to change a little bit. If we pay attention to the following picture that you have there, I think that it's very clear how it depicts the grammar translation and the direct method, how grammar was used as the main source of proficiency when learning a language. They were very emphatic about structures, about tenses, about conjugations, so it was pretty much very mechanical. And then if we continue talking about how grammar is taught nowadays, then of course there are a lot of approaches, a lot of new perspectives of how we can teach a language, either from lexical chunks, communicative context, task-based. There are a lot. but it's undeniable that communicative language teaching was the breakthrough in English language teaching. During the 1990s and still in this moment in the present, there's a focus on communicative language teaching, not only in Mexico, but in different countries around the world. Why this is so important? Well, it's because grammar is used now as a vehicle to communicate. It's not the main foundation of the class. Grammar is the vehicle, it's the tool that the students are going to use in order to communicate, in order to convey a message. And that's something that one of you mentioned, like situations. There are going to be situations in which students are going to use specific grammar, specific forms to fulfill a need for communication. That's why communicative language teaching is so important. And well, under this umbrella that is communicative language teaching, grammar takes part, and it's a very, very fundamental part of a communicative task because they create a specific need for communication. In the following picture, you can see a little bit the essence of communicative language teaching. Always a situation in which people are going to communicate, in which they are going to use a specific function to fulfill, to convey a message. And of course, this is a very, very big concept that maybe we don't have enough time to go in detail about communicative competence, but there are different elements that contribute and constitute communicative competence. How you're going to use the grammar, what is formal, informal, register. There are many, many factors that are considered when we talk about communicative competence. And well, we have the grammar methodologies. We always talk about the PPP, how traditional is the PPP, which is presentation, practice, production. And sometimes that takes part as traditional, as a traditional explicit approach, is when the teacher explains the rules, presents the rules, and then students take notes, practice, and then produce a little bit. Could be speaking, could be writing, but that is part of the production. When we talk about the communicative approach, we need to talk about two different concepts, which are, and that's something that some of you mentioned before, inductive grammar teaching and deductive grammar teaching. There's one point when the teacher just gives plenty of structures, gives plenty of exposure to specific forms that the students start thinking, start reorganizing this in their minds. So they try to infer the rules. That is another concept that is opposite to the traditional PPP method. So instead of explaining the rule, let's make students infer the rule. And then I would like to ask somebody to help me to describe this picture. Describe it not only in what we obviously can see, but what it represents. It represents a traditional classroom. And I would like somebody to participate telling us what are some of the characteristics of the typical traditional classroom.
May I participate?
Of course. What's your name?
Karina from Peru.
Nice to meet you. Go ahead.
Nice to meet you, Fernando. Okay, well, what we can see there, it's what you were mentioning before, a 1950s or 1960s classroom where traditional education was, we were based on traditional education. So grammar was also very traditional here. We can see that we had to learn a structure. In order to make a sentence or create a sentence, we had to learn the structure, no? So I don't know, subject plus verb plus noun and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes we have like, we make that mistake. And what happens when the student creates a sentence? They sometimes learn, I don't know, we can say the sky is blue, and we have not the subject, the verb to be, and then a color. But what happens is if the student says the sky is red, No, grammatically, that sentence is right, is correct, but it does not make sense to the reality, no, or what we approximately think or believe that the color of the sky is. So it's very traditional. Sometimes we teach by the culture of fear. You know, the students sometimes are afraid to speak. They have to memorize formulas that are all not, that sometimes are not useful to communicate. That's what I think about that.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, yes, we're talking about a traditional classroom where students, well, the teacher is like the one and only who is in charge of this learning moment. And yes, there are rules, there's discipline, we talk about taking turns to participate one at a time. So it's a whole different dynamic. It's a whole different dynamic of what we have been working lately with different new approaches and versions from communicatives, lexical, task-based. Let's proceed. What are the most distinctive characteristics of the traditional and explicit approach? As the name says, it's explicit, it's obvious, yes. We teach grammar using grammar rules, formulas, like you mentioned before. Always the subject plus the verb. Remember the verb in correct conjugation, if it's present, if it's past, if it's a third person, and then we have our time expression. So there's a formula we construct in very repetitive in a very repetitive way. We use a lot of repetitive drills, a lot of repetition. The learners are in control during the practice, not necessarily during the presentation, only during the practice and the production. Yes, and then also the instruction is very explicit and focuses on improvements in specific structures of the language. The practice drills have very little relevance to using grammar effectively. Okay, so those we can say that are the most distinctive characteristics and features of a traditional explicit approach when it comes to teaching grammar in the classroom. Some of you may be familiar with this because it's a concept that we have heard for many, many years in this profession, which is the PPP. Now we have this this chart in form of a pie that focuses on the three most important aspects that we consider when we teach grammar. One is the form, another one is the meaning, and another one is the use. So this is like a combination, it's a cycle, yes, that is connected, that is linked. When we talk about form, it's how is it formed? What's the pattern in this structure? Meaning, what does that mean? What does it really mean? And the other one is the use, when and why we use this structure. So these are some of the most important aspects that are considered when grammar is taught. So we can think about any grammar tense, any topic, and we can try to analyze this topic under these three different perspectives. For example, I'm thinking about past simple. Think about past simple. What is the form of past simple? How is it formed? Well, we are taught that there's a subject and there's a verb in past and could be regular, irregular. That's the form. The meaning, what would be the meaning? Of course, we're talking about completed actions in the past. And also, we have the use. When do we use it? So this is one example, past simple, but we can also use like future, or we can use like present perfect. But let's take, for example, a little bit an easier topic. Let's talk about the possessive S, okay? I will give you 1 minute to think about this, and I will ask somebody to share how we can analyze the possessive S form under this grammar chart. What is the form of the possessive S? What is the meaning of the possessive S? And what is the use of the possessive S? So I will give you 1 minute to think about it, and then I will ask somebody to contribute, to participate, to share about this. Okay, if somebody could help us and participate about how for the possessive S could be analyzed under these concepts, form, meaning, and use. If somebody could be so kind to contribute.
Hello?
Yes?
Hi.
Hi, what's your name?
Jenny. Nice to meet you, Fernando.
Where are you from and what level do you teach?
Well, at the moment, I'm teaching speaking and listening. It's called the Skillful. It's a new subject they've introduced into the high school. But I do have to teach grammar. And I'm presently living in Ecuador.
Okay.
And I'm teaching senior high school levels.
Okay.
Okay, so before I explain about the possessive S, which is obviously, okay, the form is to put the apostrophe S. It's used to show pertinence, that it belongs to someone. We could use it with names. We could use it with nouns. And what was the other question? Why we use it or how?
Remember, it's the form, the meaning, and the use. It's how is it formed, what does it mean, when, and why do we use it?
Right. Well, I think I answered most of it. And the form is the apostrophe S. What I like about your chart is that it can be used in students in the class as well. Like, since I think it would be a good idea, I don't know if you agree with me, and far away from the traditional way, is that the students discover as well, you know, what they can do with certain grammar points. Instead of just and I like the way you did it because we're here thinking about it. We're your students. You're our teacher, right? And I think it's a good technique.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for your contribution. Yes, of course, if we talk about the possessive S, and that's something you can see in this slide share. The possessive, of course, the form it's apostrophe S, or according to the spelling of the word. The meaning is always possession, is description, is relationship between the subject and the object. And the use, well, it's when do we use it? Well, could be a situation to express possession, but also it's like the use like apostrophe s versus possessive determiner and all these kind of aspects. So we can analyze a lot of grammar topics under this chart, and that will give you a clear understanding of how grammar can be taught. And also, when we talk about the use, of course, we focus on situations. When are we going to use this form? When are we going to use this structure? And that's when we talk about communicative activities and communicative language teaching. Okay, the communicative approach. Well, as I said before, the goal is to develop communicative competence. What is that? This communicative competence is the ability to speak a language with linguistic proficiency and to use it and to use this language appropriately in different social contexts, situations. That's something you had already mentioned. Okay. Well, the purpose of this is to learn, of course, the language, of which grammar is a part, just a part, not the whole foundation of this. Grammar forms are taught in relation to meaning and use. We focus not on the form, not a lot on the form that we mentioned before. We focus more on meaning and use, because those are the components that we care the most when we talk about communicative approach. And well, all this combination makes it real for communication to happen, always with the focus on learning. Okay, I would like to ask another person to participate, to share some of your experience using communicative approach or communicative activities versus traditional activities that you have used in your classroom. What are some of the advantages that you have found while using communicative activities that use functions and activities that are used in specific situations? If somebody could be so kind to contribute and share with us.
Hi, my name is Lucia. I'm from Ecuador and I teach to kids from 1st to 5th grade. So for them, learning grammar, like grammar, it's completely, I would say, even unbelievable, because they don't understand that, like they don't know what grammar is. They are just getting this approach to how they need to use the words in order to form the sentences. So what I do usually, especially now that we are in this difficult situation, when I am sending them their homework and I am giving them the videos, so I use realistic situations to teach them. For example, why do we need to use the S for the third person singular? So I usually, like, I don't tell them this is a rule or this is something you always need to do, or like this is a grammar topic. I try to introduce this in a fun way. I remember that for this S that they need to add for the third person singular, I just draw a huge S, like a Superman S, and I said that this is a friend that is gonna help he, she, and it with these sentences. So I think this is very useful, especially for kids when they are small, because we are not telling them, okay, this is the structure and you need to learn this. But we are playing with them and it's easier for them to understand grammar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, definitely it's going to be easier to understand grammar. And obviously, if we focus on situations, and of course, we don't have to forget that the level, of course, the level of our students, the level we're teaching determines the way we're going to approach this, and also the time. It's a very, very important thing to consider when we plan our class. Okay, so let's proceed. When we talk about the communicative approach, we have these concepts, these two different concepts: the inductive teaching and the deductive. When we talk about inductive teaching, it's about learners discovering the rules for themselves. They infer based on the exposure they have, based on the examples that you give them. They try to infer the rules, and then of course it talks about being involved actively in the class, because it's a process that they have to work on, to be focused in order to infer, to understand what's happening in that form. And also we talk about collaborative. Yes, sometimes they have to work together to do this. And some teachers said it's a disadvantage, that it's time consuming. It takes more time. Of course, it takes more time to help students realize and infer a rule than presenting that, because it's very easy to present it. It will take you like 2 minutes to present the rule, the order of the sentence. But if you make them discover that, of course, it's going to take more time. And also we talk about deductive teaching, which is like the other, like the other aspect, which of course saves time, because you present the rule as it is in 1 or 2 minutes, and then you respect the majority of your learners. Encourage this approach, or this deductive teaching encourages teacher-fronted explanations, and it maybe is not that memorable because it's something that students are or are used to seeing every day, teacher in front of the classroom explaining. So maybe it's not that memorable for them. It's something that happens every day. Teacher in front of them explaining rules. And then we have in this chart, we have like a comparison of the traditional and the communicative approach when it comes to teaching grammar. The example that we have here is teach ED forms. Of course, we're talking about past simple. We also talk about when we talk about past, we give them lists and they memorize the verbs, and sometimes you make tests, quizzes, exams, and that's how you know they're learning. We need to practice the patterns of ED using drills and substitution drills for irregular verbs. Go, went, drink, drank. We use a lot of drills where they repeat in order to learn to memorize these verbs. But what would be the other perspective? What would be the communicative way to do this? Well, it could be a dialogue, could be a short question and answer session where they have to talk about things they did yesterday or last week or last weekend or on their last vacation, or how they celebrated the last birthday. But the situation here focuses on using the form to describe, to talk about a past situation. Okay, so could be we use all these forms, but in a communicative way. Maybe they're working in pairs, maybe they ask each other questions. Okay, I would like to ask somebody to participate. What's your experience, especially while working with simple past? How do you use it? Do you always present the rules? What function do you use? Do you make them talk about their last birthday, their last vacation, what they did yesterday? Did you integrate vocabulary of routines? What time did you get up yesterday? How do you work with simple past in your classroom? You combine them, you use more traditional, you use more communicative. I would like to listen. I would like somebody to share their experience with us. Somebody, please, who can share.
Okay, me.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Uh, I don't know if I can participate again. I just
Of course,
I
yes.
describe the picture as nobody speaks.
Okay.
I do it. Oh, well, with past simple, well, this is what I think like doing an experiment. No, sometimes when I teach first regular verbs, my students think or used to think, oh, well, my context is university, no, adolescents or yeah, youth people, young people, and they don't know. Most of them don't know anything about English, or their knowledge is very basic. So when I introduce past simple, I used to start with regular verbs. And then they used to think that all the verbs ended with ed or had the ed termination. What I did this summer was make something, do it in verse, in the inverse way. I started with irregular verbs, and I do tell them that the only way to manage this is by learning and memorizing, because there is no other way, by memorizing and by practicing. So that is kind of the traditional thing that I do, no, that is kind of necessary in our classrooms. On the other hand, in the communicative way, what we do, or what is very useful for me, is pair work, where we ask questions like, where were you last Saturday, or what did you do last night? And what I tell my students is to answer using full answers. No, what did you do last night? Last night I went to the cinema. So instead of telling, or instead of responding to this, what did you do last night? Went to cinema, or something like that. Complete sentence. I went to the cinema last night. And in that way, I think I help them to reproduce the language, personalize them, personalize it according to their experience, to what they did, and also reinforcing the grammar, you know, and also practicing their pronunciation. That's the way I think it works. And for that, I make sure everybody works. No, I always monitor my classroom, walk around, and have, if they have ask if they have a question, or if they have a doubt, or how can I help them. That's very helpful. And sometimes when they lack of interest and they see that their teacher is there standing then next to them, they they change their attitude a little bit. That's part of my
Okay.
experience that I can share with you.
Okay, okay, yes, of course. I like that a lot that you mentioned that. Make them use the whole structure so they can, get used to recognizing the form. Maybe they're not going to answer like that all the time, but the fact that you ask them to give you full answers and the whole answer is going to be beneficial, so they can practice the structure over and over again. So thank you very much. We continue. Okay, so what is the most effective? We're not saying that one is better than the other, they're just different. There are some moments in which you actually need to explain rules. There are some others in which you need to have your students communicate for a specific purpose. So we're not saying that one is better than the other. They're just different. They just go through different ways. One goes, if we talk about form, of course, we're talking about accuracy. If we talk about use and meaning, we talk about fluency. Okay, so it's a very controversial issue here, but if from my point of view and based on my experience, I can tell you that one is no better than the other. They're just different and they are used for different purposes. So it's very easy. It's a combination of methods. It's a combination of perspectives. Some learners have the ability to pick up to infer the linguistic features from exposure. But let's be honest, some other learners are not so fast or do not have this ability still developed. So maybe it's necessary for them to see a formula, to see a rule, to incorporate this into their learning. And yes, especially when we talk about the age and we talk about how big your classroom is, how large your class is, so that will determine absolutely how you combine and how you use this to get the most effective results in this context. Now, the name of this session is creative grammar. So if we talk about a creative grammar approach, we need to talk about a combination of different things that will help you to teach grammar and to practice grammar in a fun way. So, well, the communicative competence model combines, and it's a balance between explicit and communicative methodologies. It provides all the students a clear and well-explained theoretical framework and provides students with a contextualized and natural environment to communicate. So we are creating real situations that they will find in life, in the world, so they can use the language, okay? So, what are the aspects of a creative grammar approach? Well, it makes communication the focus of language learning. Why are we learning? Because we want to communicate. Because there will be moments in life in which we need to communicate, and that's why we're learning. Also, this creative grammar approach provides and gives opportunities to experiment, you know, and to try things. Things may work, some others don't. So that's part of this approach. And let's talk about also about it requires tolerance for students to practice and to use these structures and to develop communicative competence. And then we have also that this creative grammar approach provides opportunities for both accuracy and fluency, that they are two different concepts, but they are going to use them in order to be more proficient in the language. And well, also, what is the main intention of this creative grammar approach is that could be more dynamic, and students can have fun and learn at the same time. So in this combination of structured output activities and communicative output activities are going to help you to do this. We're going to create activities that will encourage communicative competence, always with a purpose and with some characteristics like information gap and with different forms of expression. What are the aspects of creative grammar approach? When we talk about structured output, is the most common is like information gap. What is intended to be completed? And then also when we talk about communicative output activities, we talk about role plays, discussions that promote and help students to be more creative and innovative. So how can we develop these grammar teaching activities? Well, there's, of course, you decide according to the program, to the vocabulary, to the book you're working with. But there are some aspects that you need to identify. First, it needs to describe what is some of the characteristics. Okay, describe a grammar point, practice the grammar point in a communicative drill, and give them a communicative task, an opportunity that they can use this to interact and collaborate. That is part of the creative grammar developing activities. So always provide them oral chances, oral situations where they can address the topic, oral and written. So because that's production. When we talk about the skills and we talk about also speaking and writing as production. Also have students practice the grammar point in communicative drills, very, very specific structured forms that they can use. and have students to complete tasks so they can feel that they are creating, that they are doing something with the language, not just playing with it, but getting something with it. And I have several examples of some activities that you can do. Of course, it's easier when we are face to face with teachers and we can role play in a classroom. But I'm going to try to explain some of the features that we have. For example, this activity, I've got an email. I think that we all know um, this activity that is find someone who. It's an activity that we used a lot, but this is like the upgraded version of this. So if somebody can help me to explain for those that maybe don't know or don't remember very well, what is this find someone who activity and when do you use it? If somebody could participate. This activity one, I've got an email. Remember, it's very similar to find someone who, but before I explain this activity, I would like somebody to explain what is this find someone who activity.
Hi, again.
Hi.
Can I participate again, or should I let someone else?
Of course.
Okay, well, I've used this activity in my classroom in order to introduce vocabulary or expressions, language expressions. And I would have the students just stand up and just look for a partner and have maybe choose at least minimum 4 or 5 to answer the questions that they have on the sheet, right? Someone who, for example, the present perfect tense, someone who has eaten frog legs before. They would have to write down the names of the student that they interviewed, and there would be a checklist, right, where they would say yes or no. If I wanted to make it a little bit more extensive and work on the information questions, I could add when, how long ago, according to the grammar that I'm teaching, right? That's the way I've used that activity.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so we always have like a checklist. We always have a list of different characteristics, and you need to find somebody. But in this activity that I'm showing you, which is the I've got an email. Maybe you can buy, even in anywhere, you can buy envelopes, and you can give one to students. And the activity is that we receive an imaginary email. So each student is going to say, for example, I've got an email from a person who is wearing a black jacket, and that person is going to stand up and is going to read. It's like a chain, and is going to read the next email. So it's like, I've got an email from a person who has long black hair, and all the people who have long black hair are going to stand up and they're going to read their emails, and so on. So it's another way that you can make them use a specific structure or vocabulary in kind of an interactive game, collaborative game. So it's that's why I say that it's like an upgraded version of the find someone who. So it allows you to play with envelopes and the situation that you receive an email and so on. It's one example. I have another example that is called, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The thing is that I think we all are having the same problem. We're still seeing the communicative approach slide. I mean, that I can't see anything else apart from that.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that line?
Yeah, on my screen, I can only see communicative approach and the points after it. Are we still on that page, or do you have something else? Because I can't see anything else.
No, I have something else. Let me just.
Yeah, and a lot of people are writing that they can't see it or hear it.
Okay, so let me just. I'm going to close the presentation and I'm going to open it again. Maybe.
Okie doke.
¿Quieres un asiento calientito? Aquí está. Está muy
Just a sec.
Sigue siendo mío, de yo de mí.
Okay, I restarted the presentation just a second to see if you can see the actual part that I'm describing.
Dos y dos, o sea, dos hoyos y dos picos. No me importa.
Okay, I'm not sure if everybody can see this slide that has example activity 1. I've got an email.
Well, it says, it still says communicative approach.
No, que no iba ahí.
I don't know what's happening.
Tiene que tener tantitito.
Ah, sí, te digo que estoy buscando millones de partecitas chiquititas de este.
Please, there is a person who is called Creative Grammar Teaching on the chat on the meeting that is with the mic on. So please turn it off. Meantime, we're trying to fix the technical problems. But please turn off your mics. It's because also it doesn't help that you have the mics and cameras on, so it makes it slower the presentation.
Porque esta sí tiene, pero no sé. Está justito esta.
Okay. Abdel, do you? I think I restarted the presentation, so I don't know if you are able to see the slide that I'm currently describing, which was activity 1. You've got an email.
No, actually, we are seeing the same one, the communicative approach one.
Okay, what do you think I should do?
I'm thinking, let me see. I'm going to take out the control out of you, and then I give it back to you again, okay?
Okay.
Creo que sí lo encontré. Sí, no es. Ay, es que casi eso es. Casi de esos, casi tan casillosos. ¡Oh! Creo que sí, no. La verdad es que es fácil de encontrar. Hay muchos dositos.
Okay, Fernando, can you try it again, please?
Okay.
No sé, lo que haces de comer, sopa. ¿Pero qué sopa? ¿Sopa de Gaby? ¿Pero dónde conseguiste tu Gaby? Porque yo estoy aquí. Aquí.
Ya cambié la presentación, a ver.
We are seeing the same one, Fernando.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
So should I continue just?
Yes, just continue, please. And we're gonna try
so
to make available
mentioned
the PowerPoint to everyone.
Okay. Yes, so I mentioned define someone who is an example of an activity that you can adapt, maybe with envelopes. I've got an email, I've got a letter that you can use. Another activity would be, for example, there's one that I use in which you play a short video with any situation, and you make students describe without sound. I mean, the video doesn't have sound, so you make the students describe what they are seeing to their partner, so they can see it face to face, and one person can start taking notes of that. Another activity that
Pero ya lo intenté y no se pone.
Another activity is last week I went to Paris. I went to Paris, so you present like a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and you make the students sit in circle, and you say, last week I went to Paris and I bought a jacket. And then the other person, last week I went to Paris and I bought a jacket, and each person should add something. And then, I mean, you try to remember what everybody bought in that trip, and then you can drill and ask questions, or maybe you can make them write their answers. That's one example, for past simple. Last week I went to Paris. Or you can choose any other city, any other place that you think would be interesting for your students. Another activity it's a mixed activity. You have a bowl, or I don't know, a bag or something, where you put different sentences in different tenses or using different vocabulary. You make teams and you make them choose one, participate in teams. Each participant takes one paper and you have different options. Maybe they can mimic, I don't know, maybe the sentence says she's cooking for her family. So with mimics, they can use it. Or maybe you can use like a Pictionary if you think that they are not very confident or they're very shy to perform. Maybe you can ask them to draw. So you transform this activity into a Pictionary activity, which they have to draw, not with letters, but just with drawings. They have to help their team to guess this. So it's a mixed activity. In a bowl, in a bag, you can put papers with different structures, with different vocabulary items that they have to draw, to mimic. So that would be another aspect. Kahoot, if we want to talk about some of the most used digital resources that we can have on the internet, we have a lot of them. Kahoot is one of them. Sometimes it's difficult because not all students are allowed to use cell phones or devices in the classroom. But I would like to ask somebody, what are some of the online resources that you have used in your class in order to teach grammar? So there are a lot. So I would like to listen to somebody telling us what are some of the online resources that you have used that you think are another alternative to teach grammar.
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, hola. What's your name? Hello.
Fernando, we have some comments on the chat. Maybe you want me to read them?
Yeah,
because they're very interesting. We have a person, Julio Galarza, who said he likes to use Read Works for reading, which is really helpful. We have another person that is says unscrambled activities, which are also really fun. A lot of people agree on Kahoot. So you can always participate on the chat, and if it's possible, we can read out some of your comments. But Kahoot, they all agree, Fernando, and also on scrambled sentences and read works. So maybe you want expand on a little bit on scrambled sentences.
Okay, okay. Before I forget, and yeah, I'm going to mention something before I forget. There's another game that I just remembered that it's called Chinese Whisper. You know that, like it's in Mexico, I think we call it broken telephone. So it's the same. You have some papers with different structures, uh, different tenses or vocabulary items, but preferably we need sentences for this. So the Chinese Whisper is you make students stand up and make lines, maybe 2 or 3 lines, 2 or 3 teams. I think it's okay, and in line you need to give the message to the first person, and the message has to be passed just whispering until the last person. The last person on the line is the one that is going to write. And at the end, you compare how accurate that sentence was. So it's another way, more interactive and a little bit different to make them repeat the structure. It's not like all at the same time. It's you make them pass a message through each one until it gets to the last person. So that's really fun, and trust me, it's real fun. Try it. It's another way to work with repetition in order to consolidate a structure, but it's a game. So they love this sense of telling a secret, and who is going to be the one who is going to be more accurate. So that's another one that I wanted to mention before I forget. And yes, Kahoot, of course, we can create a lot of different tests, quizzes, reviews with vocabulary, and it's always real fun for students. Abdel, can you read some of the comments so I can expand or elaborate a little bit more on this?
Sure. There is a question that it says, you want, or is it possible to expand a little bit on Kahoots? Because she doesn't know what exactly it is. And I think I have a few questions about Kahoot.
Uh-huh. How it is used or specific details about?
Exactly. How it is used, or maybe where you can find it, or how it works.
Okay. So, well, before I go on this, can you tell me can you see the slide that I have right now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, so if my screen is working, then I will try to show you a more practical example of what we can do with Kahoot. While I try to retrieve this picture, I will explain. Okay, so well, Kahoot is basically this website in which we as teachers we can create questionnaires, quizzes, and it's always like in a competition, um, in which students are going to practice. So it's a website. I'm trying to retrieve it, just a second, where you can find, you can create your own, or you can find some others. It always gives you the option for you to use 4 answers, and students have to choose one of these answers. Let me just open one game, if it's possible to open one, and show to all the teachers who haven't worked with this useful tool yet. They can see it's for free. Let me just You can, if you have some, if you have a video projector in your classroom, would be easier to do it. Maybe not every day. It's not an activity that you can do maybe like every day. It tends to, maybe they find it boring after some games, but definitely I think you should try it. Okay, I think I'm in. Let me just share the screen so you can see the format of this. Okay, can you see the website that I'm projecting right now?
No.
I watch your camera.
Not yet, Fernando.
Not yet, just a second. Not yet?
Fernando, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Freddy from Ecuador.
Nice to meet you, Freddy. How are you?
Fine. Until you fix that problem,
yes,
I have a request for all the users of this platform.
Okay, go ahead.
I was checking the link that Charlotte sent us, and that was also interesting about games, hangman, etc. And I would like to ask if each of us can share a link, our useful link about grammar, vocabulary. In that case, we can have a bank of resources for each of us, because we have to take advantage that right now we are people from all around the world, maybe, until you fix that problem.
Yes.
What do you,
yes.
what do you think
okay, you mentioned a link or a website?
Each of us can share a link.
I'm sorry?
Each of us can share a link like Charlotte did, if you check in the meeting chat. That was also... Yeah?
Yeah, of course. If we're talking about online resources, yes, of course, Dayton has a lot of online resources, but if you want extra, I don't know, the first thing that comes to my mind right now, there's one that is called, it's a website that is called EnglishForEveryone.org, and there you can find different activities and always graded from beginners to advanced. So, and it could be, there are crosswords, puzzles, and different resources that you can use. Okay. Abdel, can you see the screen right now?
Fernando, can you write it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. Okay, I repeat the website. It's EnglishForEveryone.org. Okay, so the Kahoot that some of you had some questions about is this platform that you can use to create quizzes. For example, you can include as many questions as you want, and the level of difficulty, of course, you are going to decide it based on the level of your students. This is something that I did not create. I found it here because here you can find a lot of resources. This quiz is English for beginners, and it's just about vocabulary. So they present different questions and different colors for the answers. So in this case, you can see what's this, and then you have the picture, and then you have the 4 answers. The students obviously are going to choose while you project that. They are going to choose the color, and the website is going to register who answered first, and so on. Sometimes if your students don't have electronic devices, then maybe you can play with colors, give them some shaped color papers that they can play with, as if they were like a dashboard or a panel that they can use to answer these questions. So you can create as many quizzes as you want, and well, if it's electronic, it will always tell you who answered first and who are the winners. There are different things in, for example, Discover is the option where you can find anything. There are quizzes about history, about English, about Spanish, about, as you can see here, the categories: music, history, technology, movies, a lot of resources. You can create your own based on your the structures or the vocabulary you're working in class, or you can include some others. Look, there's even one new, that what is coronavirus. It's, I mean, everybody can contribute in this website, and it's really real fun and entertaining. Abdel, do we have any other question?
Okay, let me read the chat. Most of the comments we have in here are contributions to other websites that the teachers are using. So I totally recommend to take a look on the chat, because everyone is posting, most of you are posting a web site in which you can work in a similar way to Kahoot. Thank you for your contributions, teachers. They're great. So please take a look. Take a look on those web pages. And we're running out of time. Fernando, maybe you want just to go ahead on conclusions,
wrap up,
and then I will give you.
Sorry, can I ask something?
Oh yeah, sure.
Of
go
course,
ahead.
yes.
Where's the chat? I can find it.
They're asking you, like, where can they find the chat?
Yes.
The chat, it's on the there is a bar with the tools where it has the camera and the micro and some
Microphone.
tools. In which and the chat box is on those tools, and you can check what everyone is posting. Just explore a little bit, but it's gonna be on this meeting. You can see which what everyone is posting right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so to wrap up, well, finally, I would like to mention this Jeopardy. It's another activity that you can create with a little bit more grown-up students. You can include different categories. For example, I remember that in this one that I created for my students, I included history. And sometimes I play it with elementary. I mean, the questions are like very, very simple, but using the structure, using past, from where was Pancho Villa born. So that's one example. You can include different topics, and allows you to use different vocabulary, not only from sports, music, but it's up to you. This is another format that I use. I form teams. It's very dynamic, very interactive, and we're using grammar playing a game. So this is the one about the video that I had mentioned before. You play a video, students are sitting opposite each other, so one cannot see the TV or the projector or the flashcard, and it's always listening to the description of the person who is actually watching the video or the flashcard or the presentation. So I think that to wrap up all this explanation, we need to reflect on this question. How can you adapt these activities into your own teaching context? Every time I ask this question to teachers, they come up with different answers. Why? Because our classrooms are different. Our students are different. Even one activity may work with one group, but not with another. So, of course, it will be very difficult to reach an agreement on how we can adapt this into our own teaching context, because our contexts are different. The levels are different, the students are different, the learning styles are different. So I would like you reflect on this. How can you adapt all these activities into your own teaching practice? And these are the references that we used in order to outline some of the points that were presented with specific authors and references for this. If you have any questions about it, or you would like to deepen a little bit more, feel free to contact us, and we will sure provide you with links or with information related to these topics. I hope that you had you could grab or pick up some different understanding on how grammar can be presented or is presented through different approaches. And if you have any questions, then feel free to write them on the chat or ask them right now. I will be willing to try to answer your questions.
Thank you, Fernando. It was very, very nice. And I really thank everyone for your patience regarding technological problems. We understand that there are a lot of people online right now, and sometimes technology it's not very trustful. But I just posted a link on the chat box about. I'm gonna do it again because everyone is writing right now. It's a survey which you can answer and give us your opinion about this. And you had to actually give us your email through this survey. And you were asking about the presentation, so please answer the survey. We're gonna get your email and we're gonna send you back the PowerPoint presentation. But just one favor, please answer the survey. It's very, very important for us because we want to improve. So if you answer the survey, we're gonna send the PowerPoint presentation back through your email. All right. Just remember to write on the survey. It is a workshop. The title of the workshop, which was Creative Grammar Teaching, and the speaker was Fernando Pérez Martinez. So please enter those details, and we're gonna make available the PowerPoint presentation. Oh, thank you, Fernando. There's the link. Also is on the chat, so you can take a picture, and please take your time to answer the survey, and we're gonna send back again the PowerPoint presentation because you were having some issues seeing the whole presentation. You're gonna have it.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
Tell us, yes.
Sorry for interrupting. I have a doubt. I'm watching the course on my laptop, but I cannot see the chat, so I cannot see the survey. Can you help me to find out the chat? I'm on my laptop.
Can you see? Are you seeing the slide, the PowerPoint presentation? Fernando is just projecting the link. Can you see it?
No, I'm just seeing the activity one. I got an email, and I don't see anything else.
Okay, that is a question. Okay, what we can do?
Can you hear me?
Excuse me.
Fernando, can you dictate the survey? I think it's a very long link, but maybe it will help.
Yes, let me just
try.
Yes.
No, just please take notes. He's gonna do it slowly.
Can you hear me, Fernando?
Yes.
Okay, I have the same problem. I can't see the chat. What I see now is the screen of Kahoot. The only thing I can see is the picture of the cat.
Right now, the only thing you see is the picture of the cat?
Yes, and I can't. Now, okay, now I see your camera, but I can't see the chat. I can't access the chat.
The chat should be, it's on the menu on the bar that you have right exactly in the same bar where you have the icon of the camera, the microphone. There should be an icon there that takes you to the chat.
Well, I can see it. I just see sorry.
It will be easier if I give you my email address, and you send me an email, and then I send you back the link for the survey. And then when we get back the survey, I send you the PowerPoint presentation. Does it make sense? Yeah?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just took a previous course before this. I was taking the emotional abilities in Spanish, and they sent a survey URL. Can I use that one, or it's different?
You mean like you had another workshop from us, and then you had the survey?
Yes, I teach preschool, and my supervisor told us to take both. Me as an English teacher, I should take both the Spanish workshop and the English workshop. So I just took one, and they gave me
No.
okay. It's
Yeah,
that.
that is a
Okay.
correct.
I
Just be
get it.
sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Just be sure that it ends on 2020, because
Okay,
the
let me
last
check.
year the last year link, it was 2019, so it has to be 2020. The last two numbers on the link. And
Yes.
for
2020.
Yes.
Okay, let
Yes.
me
Yes.
check. Let me check. Let me check.
and
Oh
for
yeah,
the
it's
people,
2020.
yeah,
Yes.
perfect. That's a link.
That's
And
the
for the
link.
people who
Okay.
Yes.
didn't, who actually is not seeing the
Thank you.
chat, and who is not seeing the slide, my email address is alfredo.jacobo @grupo-medio sm.com. alfredo.jacobo@grupo-medio sm.com. So please send me an email, and then I send you the link for the survey. And then once you answer the survey, I will send you back the PowerPoint presentation in case you need it.
Hi,
Well,
can I ask a question, please? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
we have
Yes.
only
Go
1
ahead.
minute. Yes.
Okay, so it says nombre del facilitador, that's Fernando Pérez, right?
Fernando Pérez. Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody, for your attention. Thank you for taking this moment. This situation, it's extraordinary around the world. Technology sometimes take us off guard, but I hope we can improve for future sessions. I wish you the best for you and all people around you. Be safe, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, everyone. And have a
too.
nice day.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. And can you repeat the email address, please?
There is in the chat. alfredo.jacobo@grupo-medio sm.com.
Thank you. But I can't access to the chat. That's why I am asking. But thank you again.
Alfredo